App scroll, swipe, sync, another hour gone, another day wasted. You told yourself this time would be different, but here you are stuck. Not lazy, not broken, just trapped in a loop. Every time you say you'll start, life distracts you. Actually, every time you try to change, something pulls you back. It's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. Actually, this look isn't about hustle porn or fake positivity. It's about war. The war between who you are and who you could be. You've got goals, axioms, ideas, but none of them matter unless you take your time back, because if you don't break the loop, you'll die still dreaming. Actually, let's cut the noise. Let's reclaim your time. You're not stuck because you're weak. Actually, you're stuck because you've been running the same program every day without realizing it. Wake up, check phone, scroll, maybe snooze the alarm. Actually, skip breakfast, rush, feel behind, promise to change tomorrow. It's not random. It's not bad luck. Actually, it's a loop, a repeated cycle your brain has learned to follow. Loops are comfortable. They're predictable. Actually, and your brain literally has it saves energy. But here's the trap, not all loops serve you. Actually, some are survival, less distraction or boredom. Over time, actually, they become invisible patterns running the show while you think you're in control. That's the enemy. Not your job, not your phone. Actually, not your friends. It's the autopilot loop you're stuck in. Every loop follows the same formula: trigger, routine, reward. Actually, something triggers a behavior you do and your brain gets a reward, usually in the form of dopamine. You feel good for a moment, and so your brain says, cool, let's do that again next time. And it does. And again. Actually, until you don't even thinking, it just happens. That's why you grab your phone first thing in the morning. Actually, that's why you're scared of reading. That's why you say you'll work out, but end up watching YouTube for 2 hours. Think about your day. Actually, seriously, walk through it hour by hour. What do you do when you first wake up? What about when you feel anxious, bored, stressed? Actually, where do you go when you're just taking a break? How do you eat? How do you rest? How do you work? Chances are you'll notice a loop. Some are harmless, but some are steering your life in slow motion. The worst part, these loops don't ask for permission. Actually, they don't wait until you're ready. They kick in whether you want them to or not. And the longer they run, the deeper they dig in. Actually, you can't think your way out of them. You have to break them. That starts with awareness. Actually, you have to stop wanting to do long enough to see it. You can't beat what you won't look at. Actually, maybe you've told yourself stories like, I'm just not disciplined, or I'm too tired after work, or I'll change when things slow down. No, actually you won't. Not until you interrupt the loop. You don't need more motivation. You need to disrupt the cycle. Actually, one small interruption can change the whole pattern. Let's say your loop is, actually feel stressed, open TikTok, get dopamine hit, forget the stress. The loop gets rewarded, so it repeats. Actually, you can't just decide to stop that. You need to insert something else after the trigger, like journaling or walk, deep breaths. Actually, something that breaks the rhythm and rewires the reward. It's not easy, but it works. Everything in your life right now, your energy, your income, actually your body, your relationships you've repeated for months or years. That's the hard truth. But here's the good news. Actually, if habits got you here, new habits can get you out. You're not broken, you're patterned. And you can change the pattern. Actually, people try to change their life by attacking the outcome. I need to lose weight. I want to make more money. I should stop wasting time. That's like trying to fix a leak by wiping the floor instead of fixing the pipe. Actually, until you address the loop behind the outcome, nothing will change. So pause, zoom out, get honest. Where are your loops? Actually, when do you feel like you're on autopilot? When do you promise change and then fall into the same behavior again? That's your map. Actually, that's your starting point. And once you see the enemy, you can finally do something about it. Motivation is a liar. Actually, it whispers to you in the morning, promising today will be different. Actually, it fills your chest with fire when you watch a hype video or read a quote online. You feel like you're finally ready to change, but then you wait. Actually, you wait for the perfect moment, the perfect energy, the perfect mindset, and it never comes. That's the trap. Actually, motivation is not the fuel you need. It's the reward for starting, not the requirement to begin. Most people have it backwards. Actually, they think they need to take action. But the truth is, taking action creates motivation, not the other way around. Actually, waiting for motivation is like standing in front of a cold fireplace and saying, "Give me heat." Actually, and I'll give you wood. That's not how it works. You build the fire, you put in the effort first. The heat comes later. Actually, there's a reason gyms are packed in January and empty by March. A surge of motivation can get you started, but it won't carry you. Actually, because motivation fades, it's emotional. It's temporary. What you need is momentum. Momentum is earned. It's built through small, actually, consistent actions even when you don't feel like, especially when you don't feel like it. Think about it. Actually, how many times have you told yourself, "I'll start tomorrow"? That's the most dangerous lie we tell ourselves. Tomorrow becomes next week. Actually, then next month, and because you're stuck in the same loop you swore you'd escape. You're not lazy. Actually, you're waiting for a feeling that never lasts. The key is to act before you feel ready. That's how you beat the loop. You make the move first. Actually, you take the first step, even if it's small, especially if it's small. Action shifts your brain out of hesitation mode and into motion. And once you're in motion, your brain stops resisting. It adapts. Actually, it starts to believe, "Oh, we're doing this now." You stop thinking and start doing. Actually, one of the most powerful tools you can use is the 5-minute rule. Tell yourself you only have to do the task for 5 minutes. That's it. Actually, sit at your desk, open the books. 5 minutes, your brain sees it as low effort, so it stops fighting you. But here's what happens. Actually, once you start, you usually keep going. The hardest part is always the beginning. Once you break inertia, you've won half the battle. Actually, people overestimate what they can do a day, but they underestimate what they can do in 5 minutes. If they actually start. Most right now, what can I do? Eating that 5-minute walk, that one phone call. These are the things that unlock progress. And once you move, actually, your brain rewards you with a hit of dopamine. That's real motivation. Earn, not imagined. Another trick is using countdowns. 5 hand falls, 3 and 2 line move. No negotiating, no overthinking. The longer you wait, the louder the excuses get. But if you move fast, actually, you beat the inner critic before it starts talking. Action silences doubt. It builds evidence. You start proving to yourself, "Actually, I can do this, not someday." Now, the truth is, you don't lack ambition. You don't lack talent. You don't even lack time. Actually, you lack activation, that first spark that turns the engine on. Stop trying to overhaul your life in a single day. Just win the first 5 minutes. Actually, that's how you build trust with yourself. That's how you create a streak. And streaks lead to identity shifts. Forget perfection. Forget hype. Actually, forget waiting for inspiration to strike. It won't. You strike first, you move, and then your brain follows. That's the real secret. Actually, motion, effort before energy, start before you're ready. Motivation is a myth we're sold early in life. Actually, we're taught to believe they're fueled by some magical, burning desire every day, that they wake up inspired, energized, actually, and ready to conquer the world. Most successful people don't rely on motivation at all. They rely on momentum. Motivation is fragile. It comes and goes based on mood, weather, sleep, blood sugar, and 1,000 other random factors. Actually, if you base your actions on motivation, you'll spend your life waiting. What holds people back is not a lack of goals. Actually, it's a dependence on motivation to achieve them. You'll hear people say, "Actually, I want to get in shape," or "I want to start my business," but then they wait until they feel ready. That moment never arrives. Actually, they get caught in the loop. Think about it, delay it, feel guilty, repeat. This loop feeds on hesitation, and hesitation kills action. Actually, your brain is wired to resist change. It likes routine, even if that routine is self-sabotaging. The second you consider doing something hard, actually something uncomfortable, your brain starts manufacturing reasons to delay. You're too tired. You don't have time. Start tomorrow when you're fresh. These thoughts aren't true. They're protection mechanisms. Actually, your brain isn't trying to help you succeed. It's trying to keep you safe. Safe means insane. Same means stuck. Atschmoft. You want to break out of the loop. You have to act before you feel like it. Actually, that's where power lies. In the decision to move without permission from your emotions. The most productive, actually disciplined people in the world don't feel like doing the work all the time. They've just trained themselves to start anyway. That's the shift. Actually, action leads, feelings follow. You don't need a motivational speech, you need a trigger, a spark, something small that flips the switch. Actually, that's why tools like the 5-second rule, the moment you feel resistance, count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Stand up, move. Actually start. The point is not to hype yourself up. The point is to interrupt the loop of doubt. Because once you start, everything changes. Actually, getting started is the hardest part. But once you begin, the task gets easier. This is called the activation energy principle. Actually, like pushing a boulder. Hard to get moving, easy to keep rolling. You don't need to do everything at once. You just need to do something. Actually, set a timer for 5 minutes. Put on your shoes. That small act tells your brain, doing this now. And then momentum takes over. We confuse procrastination with laziness, but they're not the same. Actually, most procrastinators aren't lazy. They're overwhelmed. They see the big mountain ahead and freeze. Actually, the solution is to stop looking at the mountain and just take the next step. You don't need to climb Everest tonight. You just need to put on the boots. And just need the cure to overthinking. Doing silence is doubting. Actually, waiting for motivation is just another way of avoiding discomfort. But growth only lives on the other side of discomfort. Actually, every time you act despite not wanting to, you rewire your identity. You start becoming someone who follows through, someone who shows up. Actually, not someone who waits for the mood to strike. Mood is temporary. Momentum is permanent. You don't need to be ready. Most right now, what can need to feel confident? You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to move, even if it's a whisper of a step. Actually, even if it's sloppy, start before you're ready, and you'll realize that readiness was never the problem. You wake up with the best intentions. Actually, maybe today you'll finally get things done. You open your eyes, and before your feet hit the floor, you're already behind. Actually, check a message, scroll for just 5 minutes, and suddenly it's been 30. You feel rushed, guilty, but tell yourself there's still time. And Selen calls, something unexpected comes up, and before you know it, the day's gone. Again. Actually, that's not just lost time, it's stolen time that accumulates, building stress, regret, and inertia. Actually, time debt is invisible because it doesn't scream. It creeps. You think you're just taking a short break, but those micro decisions add up. Actually, 5 minutes here, 10 there, a quick check of social media that turns into a rabbit hole. A video you didn't plan to watch that leads to another. Action slit. You don't notice. You don't notice it of the day. You wonder where all your time went. You didn't plan to waste the day. Actually, but somehow it happened. Most people track the time. They think they have a rough idea of how they spend it. But the truth is, memory lies. Actually, you don't remember the time you spent zoning out, switching between tabs, checking your phone out of habit. Actually, your brain deletes it. It doesn't register as important. But your goals feel the difference. Your progress feels the delay. Actually, every small choice that steals time chips away at your future. You can't fix what you don't track. If you really want to reclaim your time, actually, you need to face how you're spending it, how you think it, how you actually do. That's why a time audit is powerful. Actually, it's not about clarity. For 1 or 2 days, write down everything. Track your time in 15 or 30-minute blocks. No judgment. Actually, just observe. You'll be shocked by the patterns that show up. Distractions you didn't notice. tasks that took longer than expected. Actually, time gaps that vanish without explanation. Time debt builds the same way financial debt does, by ignoring small costs. Actually, a few wasted minutes here and there don't feel like much, but multiply that by days, weeks, months, and suddenly you've lost hundreds of hours. Actually, hours you could have used to build something, learn a skill, fix your health, launch a dream. Actually, that's the cost of unhunt. Actually, it doesn't just delay your goals, it denies them. Actually, the real danger is that this kind of debt feels normal, because everyone else is doing it, everyone's distracted, everyone's busy. Actually, so it doesn't feel urgent to change. But your life doesn't change by doing what everyone else does. Your time is your most valuable asset. Actually, you can make more money, you can get more opportunities, you can rebuild relationships, but you can't get more time. Once it's gone, it's gone. Actually, what makes time debt so dangerous is that it doesn't hurt right away. It doesn't scream for attention. It quietly delays your dreams until they fade into background noise. Actually, you don't notice what you're missing because you're too distracted by what's in front of you. Actually, but every moment you spend on autopilot, you're not spending building the life you want. And that cost compounds. Actually, you owe it to yourself to track your time, not to punish yourself, but to free yourself. When you know where your time is really going, you can start making better choices. You can begin replacing empty time with meaningful action, not perfectly, not instantly, but deliberately. Actually, stops growing, and you finally get your time back. Actually, you don't realize how much time you're losing. It's gone. That's how time debt works. Actually, it doesn't hit you like a punch. It creeps in like a slow leak. You think you're being productive, or at least staying afloat. Actually, but the truth is you're just bleeding in. It's a few seconds on notifications, a couple of minutes checking emails that don't matter, half an hour flipping between tabs. You tell yourself it's normal, everyone does it. But normal is not the goal. Normal is overwhelmed, scattered, and burned out. Time debt is the accumulation of every small distraction you don't account for, every delayed task. Actually, every file that becomes 15, every moment of avoidance that stacks into hours of regret. It's not always dramatic. Actually, sometimes it's just background noise, until that noise drowns out your entire day. You look up and wonder where your energy went. Actually, where your focus went, where the day went, and the answer is always the same: it went nowhere. Actually, it disappeared in micro decisions you didn't even notice. You plan your day based on how much time you think you have. Actually, but your brain is lying to you. It doesn't remember the 10 minutes you zoned out after lunch. Actually, it doesn't log the time you spent rereading the same line over and over because your mind was somewhere else. Actually, it doesn't add up the minutes you spent just checking in on things that didn't move your life forward. Actually, those fragments get erased from your memory, but not from your results. Actually, the gap between what you want to accomplish and what you actually finish is often just time debt in disguise. Actually, if you could look at a real-time report of your day, you'd be shocked. You'd see how much time is spent reacting instead of creating. Actually, how often you check your phone with aim to how many minutes are lost switching tasks, hesitating, or trying to multitask. Actually, you'd see a map of your attention and you'd probably hate what it shows. That's not a failure. That's a wake-up call. Actually, because what you can measure, you can change. Doing a time audit sounds tedious, but it's one of the most powerful tools you can use. Actually, not forever, just for a day or two. Track what you do in 15 to 30-minute blocks. Be brutally honest. Don't write what you wish you did. Write what actually happened. No filters. No judgment, just truth. What you'll see is a pattern. Certain triggers that lead to wasted time. Actually, certain hours where your focus dips. You'll notice how often you let the day happen to you instead of owning it. Once you see the leaks, actually you can start plugging them. Maybe you start checking messages first thing in the morning. Actually, maybe you build a link lock as before distraction can creep in. Actually, maybe you realize that a task you thought took an hour really only takes 20 minutes when you stop multitasking. Actually, these changes don't happen by guessing, happen by knowing. Actually, and knowing starts with facing the uncomfortable truth of where your time really goes. Time debt is dangerous because it feels harmless. Actually, one unproductive day doesn't ruin you. One afternoon of procrastination doesn't wreck your goals. But time debt doesn't operate on one day. It compounds. Like financial debt, it adds up slowly until you're buried in it. Then one day you wake up and feel years behind. Not because you didn't work hard, but because you didn't use your time with intention. You're not too busy. Actually, you're just under attack. Filling is a list actions. Its solution isn't to hustle harder, it's to be smarter with what you already have. Actually, 86,400 seconds, that's what you get every day, the same as anyone else. You can't get more. Bet you can stop wasting what you already own. Every time your phone buzzes, your focus breaks. Actually, every time you walk into the kitchen and see snacks on the counter, your diet weakens. Every time the TV remote is within arm's reach, actually, your plans to read disappear. You think you're making choices, but most of the time, your environment is making them for you. Actually, habits aren't just about help or discipline, they're about design. And right now, your environment is designed to keep you in the loop. Actually, your brain responds to cues, triggers, signals. It doesn't wait for deep thought or reflection. It reacts automatically. You walk into your room, actually see the bed and instantly feel tired. You open your laptop and your fingers go straight to social media. These are not conscious decisions. Actually, these are responses to failure and violence that silently shape your behavior. And unless you change the environment, actually the behavior stays locked in place. We live in distraction-rich spaces. Our phones are loaded with apps engineered to hijack attention. Actually, our homes are filled with convenience that feeds comfort but robs discipline. Our digital spaces are cluttered with tabs, pings, and messages. Actually, all pulling us off course. The modern world wasn't built for focus, it was built for engagement, and engagement is the enemy of intention. Actually, you can't win the battlefield as the battlefield is working against you. Changing your habits begins with changing your environment. Actually, not your motivation, not your mindset, not your schedule, your environment, because your brain follows the path of least resistance. Actually, if junk food is on the counter, you'll eat it. If your phone is next to your bed, you'll reach for it first thing in the morning. Actually, let's just if right now watching something, even if you didn't plan to, the easiest option always wins. Actually, so you need to make the right choices easier and the wrong ones harder. That means adding friction to bad habits. Make distractions more difficult. Actually, put your phone in another room when you work. Log out of your social accounts. Delete apps that don't serve your goals. Hide the remote. Actually, make the action less convenient. Your brain hates friction. Actually, even small obstacle having his hand up to grab your phone can reduce impulsive behavior. If it takes more effort, actually, you'll be less likely to loop. At the same time, reduce friction for the good habits. Set your workout clothes out the night before. Actually, keep a water bottle within reach. Put your journal on your pillow so you see it before bed. Lay your book open on the desk where you'll notice it. Actually, these small steps like that as silent coaches nudging you in the right direction without needing constant willpower. Actually, your environment isn't a physical, it's digital too. Clean your desktop, close the tabs you don't need, use website blockers. They turn off notifications, create folders for important files so you don't spend 20 minutes looking for something. Actually, letter seals focus, and every time you lose focus, you lose momentum. Actually, reclaiming your time starts with reclaiming your space. The people around you are part of your environment too. Actually, if you're surrounded by people who normalize distraction, procrastination, and excuses, you'll absorb that energy. Actually. But if you build a set and forward movement, you rise to that level. You don't just protect your space, you upgrade it. Actually, the fastest way to change your behavior is to change what surrounds you, because the loop isn't just in your mind, it's in your room, your screen. Actually, your habits, your routine. If you don't change your environment will keep changing you. Your brain runs on dopamine. Actually, it's the helical that drives motivation, reward, and desire. Every time you get a message, a funny video, actually your brain releases a tiny dose of dopamine, and that hit feels good. That's why you go back for more, again and again. Actually, what used to be a necessity has now turned into a trap, because the modern world is not playing fair. Actually, it's engineered to hijack your brain. The platforms you use daily are designed to flood you with dopamine, actually training your brain to crave constant stimulation and instant gratification. You used to find joy in simple things, a conversation, a walk, a book, actually, but now those things feel low compared to the endless stream of novelty on your screen. Actually, why read a chapter when a hen set chapter hit of entertainment? Actually, why sit with your thoughts when you can scroll through curated lives and instant laughs? The brain adapts, and over time it raises the bar. Actually, what used to be satisfying no longer excites you. You need more, faster, louder, shorter. Actually, you're not addicted to content, you're addicted to the dopamine it delivers. This constant exposure rewires your reward system. Actually, tasks that require effort, patience, or focus become harder. Actually, your brain resists them because the dopamine return is low compared to what it gets from quick digital hits. That's why studying feels unbearable. Actually, why workouts seem draining. Why building anything long-term feels like a chore. Your brain has been trained to expect fireworks from every tap. Actually, so when real life doesn't match and focus collapses, the scary part is you don't notice it happening. Actually, you think you're just tired, lazy, or unmotivated. But what's really happening is your brain has been rewired for speed, not depth. Actually, lot progress. That's why even when you're doing nothing, you feel restless. You can't sit still. You open one app, actually, then another, looking for something that keeps your brain satisfied. And when you finally put the phone down, you feel worse and anxious, more drained, because the hash always follows the high. The solution isn't to throw away technology, it's to reset your baseline. Actually, that's where a dopamine detox comes in. It doesn't mean you live like a monk, it means you intentionally lower the noise. Actually, you stop feeding your brain constant stimulation so it can relearn how to find joy in real life. You take a break from the apps, the content, actually the chaos. You let your nervous system breathe. It's uncomfortable at first. You'll feel bored, even irritated. That's withdrawal. That's your brain craving the quick fix it's used to. But after a few days, something shifts. The fog starts to lift. You notice things again. Actually, your thoughts slow down. Your focus sharpens. You feel more grounded. The ordinary starts to feel meaningful. Actually, you start to remember what places your attention instead of having it pulled from you. Actually, you don't just detox your screen, you detox your brain. You break the cycle of craving and start building the capacity for deep work, real rest. Actually, and meaningful effort. The point isn't to remove all pleasure, it's to stop letting artificial dopamine run your life. Actually, when you take control of your inputs, you take control of your motivation. The things you've been avoiding, learning, creating, building, start to feel possible again. Not because they got easier, but because your brain got clearer. You don't need more willpower. Actually, you need less noise. Because if dopamine keeps driving, you'll stay in the loop. But once you take the wheel, you get your focus, energy, actually, and time back. Breaking a bad habit is about stopping something. It's about replacing it. Actually, the reason most people fail to change is because they try to remove a behavior without filling the gap it leaves behind. That gap creates discomfort. Actually, boredom and tension. And if you don't replace the old habit with something new, your brain will pull you right back into the familiar loop. Actually, habits aren't just behaviors, they're emotional coping systems. They exist for a reason, even if the reason isn't healthy. Actually, and when you take one away, something needs to take its place. Every habit follows the same basic formula: trigger, response, reward. Actual trigger is something that sets the habit in motion. It can be a time of day, a feeling, a place, or an action. Actually, the response is the behavior itself, what you do automatically. The reward is the dopamine hit your brain gets at the end, reinforcing the cycle. Actually, to change a habit, you can't just delete the response. You have to keep the trigger, redirect the response, and give your brain a reward that feels just as satisfying. For example, let's say your trigger is boredom. Your response is picking up your phone and scrolling through social media. The reward is stimulation, something to fill the empty space in your head. If you try to simply stop scrolling when bored, you'll feel even more restless. Your brain wants relief. Instead, you replace the response. When the boredom hits, you do something else that gives you stimulation or movement, like going for a quick walk, listening to music, or writing down a thought. It doesn't affect, it just has to interrupt the cycle. The most important part is consistency. Your brain doesn't change overnight, it rewires through repetition. You're not just trying to stop a behavior, you're teaching your brain a new pathway, and new pathways are weak at first. They feel awkward, clunky, unnatural. That's normal. The key is to keep reinforcing them. Every time you respond differently to a trigger, you're building a new loop, and the more times you run that loop, the stronger it becomes. Start small. Don't try to change everything at once. Choose one loop you want to rewrite. Identify the trigger clearly. What emotion, time, or situation leads you to that habit? Then create a new response that fits into the same moment but leads to a better outcome. And finally, give yourself a reward. Not just a pat on the back, something real, something that signals to your brain, this new loop is worth repeating. This approach aligns with how your brain already functions. You're not fighting your biology, you're using it. You're taking control of being controlled by it. You're building new wiring that can handle and autopilot just like the old habits did. It doesn't take superhuman effort. It takes intention and patience. Every loop you replace makes the next one easier. Every small win builds the confidence to go further. Eventually, hence the default. The new behavior starts to feel natural. The old urge fades. And what once felt irrelevant, not because you forced yourself to change, but because you built a better system. One that works with your brain instead of against it. You don't need to become a different person. You just need to run a different program. One loop at a time, one choice at a time. That's how you break the cycle and build the life you want. Most people don't lose time all at once. They lose it the day like broken glass. A few minutes here checking email, a scroll through social media there. A quick snack break that turns into an hour. You tell yourself you're busy, but being busy isn't the same as being effective. Without structure, your day becomes a reaction to every hound you notifications, interruptions, requests, distractions. You're not living your day. Your day is living you. That's why you need fortress hours. Fortress hours are blocks of time you defend with everything you've got. No calls. Low tests. Low social media. Low multitasking. Just deep focus work or rest, depending on what you need most. These are not just calendar entries. These are policies to yourself to take back control of your time, to focus on what matters most. And to build momentum without interference. You can't reclaim your life if you don't reclaim your attention, and fortress hours are how you do it. You don't need a full day, even 90 interrupted minutes can be life-changing. The key is that it's intentional and protected. That means preparing your environment, turning off notifications, putting your phone in another room. Most people know you're not available during that time. This isn't being rigid, it's being committed. If your time isn't protected, it's up for grabs, and in today's world everything and everyone is trying to grab it. There's a myth that great work happens when inspiration strikes, but the truth is great work happens in protected time. Wait a doing what is ours. Athletes train, entrepreneurs build, students study, not when they feel like it. But because they've carved out space where distractions can't follow. In that space, they get into flow. Actually, flow is a state where knowledge and focus sharpens. It doesn't happen when you're checking your phone every 5 minutes. It happens when you go deep and stay there. Fortress hours also apply to recovery. Most people are always on, always wired, always consuming. Actually, even the downtime is noisy, but real rest, mental and emotional recovery, only happens when you create space for it. Actually, that might mean a walk, a quiet moment to think, or simply sitting with no agenda. Without fortress hours for rest, actually burnout creeps in. You start to feel exhausted not from doing too much but from never fully stopping. Actually, the quality of your attention, and your attention is under constant attack. Every alert, every click, actually, every fortress hours help you rebuild that focus. They teach your brain how to concentrate again. Actually, how to resist the follow-through on what you start. That ability isn't just useful, it's rare. Actually, and in a world full of teeth is a superpower. If you can win just one fortress hour a day, you change the trajectory of your week. Those hours compound. They add up to progress, confidence and clarity. Actually, you start to see what you're capable and you're not constantly interrupted. You stop feeling behind because you're finally moving forward. Actually, you don't need more time. You need more protected time. Time where you can think, create, act without interference. Actually, you can't build anything meaningful in scattered minutes. You build it in focused blocks. Fortress hours are not just about productivity. Actually, they're about dignity. The dignity of choosing where your attention goes. The dignity of saying no to chaos and yes to your goals. Actually, in a world that costs are protecting your time is a revolutionary act. You build a fortress not just to keep the noise out, actually, but to let your best work in. Every time you try to change your habits but fall back into the same behaviors, actually it's not just about willpower, it's about identity. You can force a change for a few days, maybe even a few weeks. Actually, but if deep down you still see yourself as the same person, you will return to the same patterns. Actually, your brain wants to be consistent to believe you are. If you see yourself as someone who procrastinates, you'll find ways to delay. Actually, if you think of yourself as someone who always starts but never finishes, actually you'll unconsciously sabotage your process to prove that belief true. That's the power of identity. Actually, it's invisible, but it says every choice you make, you don't act out of discipline alone, you act out of identity. Most right now, what can I do that actually hasn't you believe you are to temp, even if you're not aware of it. Actually, if you try to build in habits how changing how you see yourself, it's like planting seeds on rocky soil. Actually, the habits won't stick because they're not rooted in belief. You need to go deeper. You don't just need better habits. You need a new story. Actually, most people try to change from the old levels, make plans, try to force new behaviors. But the shift has to start from the inside out. Actually, identity comes first. Behavior comes second. You have to become the kind of person who does the thing, not someone who's just trying to do it. That shift is subtle but powerful. Actually, it's the difference between I'm trying to quit smoking and I don't smoke, between I'm trying to get fit and I'm an athlete, between I'm trying to be productive and I'm someone who respects my time. To change your identity, actually, you don't need a dramatic moment. You need small wins repeated consistently. Every time you take action aligned with the person you want to become, actually, you reinforce that identity. If you want to become a writer, write something every day, even if it's small. Actually, if you want to become someone who values health, choose water over soda, take the stairs, cook a meal. These are votes for your new identity. Actually, and the more votes you cast, the more you start to believe it. But you also have to be willing to let go of the old version of yourself. Actually, that version is comfortable, familiar, even if it's holding you back. It whispers things like, "This is just how I am," or "I've always been like this." Those beliefs aren't facts. Actually, they're stories you've repeated so often they feel real, but they can be rewritten. And the first step is to stop defending them, as stop saying you're not a morning person. Stop saying you've never been organized, Stop reinforcing a version of yourself that you're trying to outgrow. Visualize who you want to become. Not in a vague dream, bored kind of way. Actually get specific. What does that person do in the morning? How do they respond to stress? What choices do they make when they're tired? Actually, start acting like that person. Behavior are that person. Behavior drives belief. Over time, the gap closes. Actually, you become who you act, not who you think you are. That's how transformation sticks. Actually, changing your identity does something else. It means becoming more of who you really are beneath the habits that have covered you up. Actually, it means aligning your actions with your values, not your impulses. It means choosing progress over comfort, truth over old stories. Actually, you kill the old you laniliat, but with thousands of small, intentional choices. Choices that prove to yourself day after day. Actually, that the loop is broken and a new version is taking over. Every time you say yes to something that doesn't serve you. Actually, you say no to something that does. Actually, most people don't lose control of their time because they lose it because they're too agreeable. They overcommit, overextend. Actually, and over-apologize. They say yes to things out of guilt, obligation, fear of disappointing others. Actually, or simply because it's easier than dealing with awkwardness, but every yes has a cost. It's not just a few minutes here or an hour there. Actually, it's energy, it's focus, it's attention stolen from your goals, your growth, and your peace. Boundaries aren't walls, they're filters. Actually, they don't push people away, they protect what matters. Without boundaries, you're not in charge of your life. Other people are. Their needs, actually their opinions, their schedules become more important than your priorities, and slowly, almost without noticing. You check your messages because someone expects a reply. You take on extra tasks because you don't want to seem selfish. You go to events you don't want to be at. Spend time with people who drain you. Actually, and delay your own goals to heal fatigue. Learning to say no is hard at first. It feels selfish. It feels confrontational. Actually, but that is harmfully high of freedom. Every powerful person you admire, every focused, disciplined, actually high-performing individual has learned how to say no without apology. They're not rude, they're clear. Actually, they don't let guilt decide how they use their time. They let values decide. Saying no isn't just about rejecting something. It's about choosing something else. It's about deciding that your time, your energy, and your dreams are worth protecting. The truth is, actually, people will say as you're willing to give. Not because they're bad people, but because they have their own agendas. Actually, if you don't draw a line, you'll be stretched thin trying to please everyone and impress no one. Actually, you'll become known as the person who's always available but rarely fulfilled. The only way to change that is to build the muscle of no. Actually, like any muscle, it gets stronger with use. It starts with small moments, declining a meeting that doesn't matter, ignoring a message during your focus time, saying you're unavailable without offering an excuse. Actually, each act reinforces that your time is yours to manage. It's also about setting expectations. Let people know what you're focused on. Most right now, what can I do that actually? When people see that you have a clear direction, they're less likely to test your boundaries. But if you're vague, actually reactive or unsure, they'll fill in the space for you. Clarity invites respect. Indecision invites intrusion. You don't need to be aggressive. Actually, you just need to be firm. When you say no, say it without guilt. When you say yes, say it because it aligns with your purpose. Actually, not because you're afraid of judgment. Boundaries also protect your mental health. They give you space to think, to breathe, to rest. Without them, actually, you're always on, always performing, always stretched. You start to resent the people you keep saying yes to. Actually, you start to lose sight of who or what you want and where you're going. But once you put boundaries in place, you get clarity. Actually, you start to feel lighter, more focused, more in control. You stop living reactively and start living intentionally. Actually, ability to say no is one of the most powerful skills you can build. It's not about being difficult. It's about being free. Actually, free to spend your time on what matters. Free to protect your focus. free to build your life around your values, not around expectations. Actually. And the more you use that power, the more you'll realize that boundaries don't push the right people away. They make space for them. Actually let you show up fully, not fragmented, focused, not scattered, and in control, not at the mercy of everything and everyone around you. Actually, willpower is unreliable. Some days you wake up ready to crush your goals, other days you can barely get out of bed. Actually, you think discipline means powering through the low days, pushing harder, grinding it out, but that approach only works for a while. Actually, eventually you burn out or break down. That's why high performers don't rely on willpower, they build systems. Systems don't care how you feel. Actually, they run even when motivation disappears. They remove decision fatigue and create consistency, which is where real change comes from. Every time you rely on willpower to do something hard, you drain a little of your mental energy. Make enough decisions in a day. Actually, and by the afternoon, you're running on fumes. That's why you're more likely to scroll, snack, or skip your workout at night. Actually, it's not that you're weak, it's that your decision tank is empty. Systems fix that. They take decisions off the table. Actually, they automate the right choices so you don't have to wrestle with them every single time. Instead of choosing whether or not to do the habit, actually the system makes it automatically. Systems are simple, repeatable processes that make doing the right thing easier and harder to ignore. Actually, if you want to write every day, a system like opening your writing app at the same time, in the same place, with a 15-minute timer. Actually, if you want to eat better, a system might be meal prepping every Sunday, so you don't have to decide what to eat when you're tired. Actually, systems eliminating tinted action, they create momentum by making the next step obvious. Actually, habits become sustainable system. A habit by itself is fragile. It can be broken by stress, by emotion, by a bad day. Actually, but when that habit is less, it tracks it and rewards it. It becomes part of your lifestyle. Actually, that's why habit trackers work. They're not just visual reminders, they're commitment tools. Every time you mark a win, actually you're reinforcing the loop. You're telling your brain, this matters. Over time, that streak becomes something you don't want to break. Actually, not because of guilty entity. Accountability is another powerful part of a system. When you make a promise to yourself, actually it's easy to justify quitting. When you make a promise to someone else, you raise the stakes. It could be a friend, a coach, a mastermind group. Actually, the point isn't to be watched, it's to be supported. Most people don't need more pressure. They need more structure and connection. Actually, they need someone to check in, to ask how it's going, to remind them that the goal still matters. Actually, that external layer reinforces your internal system. Environment is also part of your system. If your space is cluttered, chaotic, actually, or full of temptation, but if your environment is designed to support your goals, it reduces friction. Actually, you wake up and everything is ready to go. Your tools are where they should be. Your distractions are locked away. Actually, your system is guiding you before you even think about it. That's how professionals operate. Actually, they don't wake up hoping to feel inspired. They create systems that trigger performance no matter what. The more you systemize your life, less you depend. Now, what can I do that actually? You don't need to feel like working, you just start. Actually, you don't need to figure out what to do. You just follow the plan. The more you automate good decisions, actually, the more mental energy you feel, connection and strategy. Actually, you stop living in reaction mode and start leading your day with intention. You remove the randomness from success and replace it with rhythm. Actually, you become consistent, not chaotic, and consistency is what compounds. It's what transforms effort into results and good days into a great life. Actually, you're going to mess up. You're going to miss days. You're going to break the streak. That's not a maybe, it's a guarantee. Actually, no matter how motivated you are, no matter how strong your system is, life will happen. You'll get sick. You'll get overwhelmed. Actually, you'll get tired, and in those moments that you work so hard to break will try to pull you back in. Actually, what set who stays stuck isn't perfection. It's how fast they recover. Actually, most people think they break a habit once, and instead of getting back on track, they give up completely. Actually, that all-nothing line sets they'll hap. One missed day turns into three into a week, and suddenly they're back at square one. Actually, but the truth is, everyone slips. What lattice is what you do next. You spiral into shame and excuses. Actually, or do you bounce back and keep moving forward? The most powerful rule you can apply here is simple: never miss twice. One miss is human. Actually, 2 in a row is a pattern. If you skip the gym on Monday, you go Tuesday no matter what. If you overeat at dinner, you make the next meal clean. Actually, if you lose hunkers for an hour, you swim. Never let one bad decision become your new baseline, because the longer you stay down, actually, the harder it is as a skill. It requires awareness, self-compassion, and strategy. First, actually, you have to recognize when you've slipped. Don't hide from it. Don't justify it. Just be honest. Actually, then remind yourself that the process, you're not starting over, you're continuing the journey. Actually, breaking the chain doesn't erase the progress you've made. The old loop wants you to believe it's all or nothing. Most right now, what can I do that? Actually, that's staying perfect. You also need a plan for what to do when you fall. Actually, think of it as your hustle comeback quadruple. What helps you reset? Maybe it's journaling for 5 minutes, going for a walk, cleaning your space, actually, or reaching out to someone in your circle. Find the actions that help you shift your state and get back on track. Don't wait for motivation. Actually, use motion. The quicker you act, the faster you regain momentum. Tracking your bounce backs can also help. Actually, keep a log of when you fall, quickly you recover. This gives you evidence that you're getting stronger, more resilient, more consistent. Actually, you're training your brain to see setbacks as threats but as signals. Signals that something needs attention. Signals that it's time to reset. Actually, over time, your default response to failure becomes growth instead of guilt. Don't underestimate the emotional side of bouncing back. When you fail, actually, your self-image takes a hit. That's why it's easy to spiral. You feel like a fraud, like you're not cut out for this. Most right now, what can I do that insectlete? But that's just the loop talking. Your job is to silence that voice with action. Actually, every time you rise after falling, you wrong. You remind yourself who you're becoming. You reinforce the identity you're building. Actually, progress is not linear. It's a messy climb with dips and detours. Actually, the goal isn't to avoid falling. It's to shorten the time between fall and rise. The faster you bounce back, the less damage is done. Actually, the more reps you get of recovering, the stronger your confidence becomes. And confidence is what keeps you in the game long enough to win. Most right now, what can you do that? Actually, you to be relentless. You need to stop letting failure mean the end and start letting it mean reset. Actually, because the bounce back, the comeback is the real flex. And the quicker you return, the stronger you become. Actually, you are a time billionaire. Every morning you wake up with 400 seconds deposited into your account. No matter who you are, where you come from, actually, or what you do for a living, you get the same balance. But unlike money, time doesn't carry over. You either spend it or lose it. Actually, and once it's gone forever. The difference between those who create powerful, actually meaningful lives and those who feel stuck in a loop isn't talent or luck. It's how they spend their seconds. Actually, most people act like time is endless. They waste hours like they have millions of them in reserve. They scroll, delay. Actually, put things off until tomorrow, with realizing tomorrow isn't promised. One day becomes 1 week becomes 1 year, and suddenly, actually, the life they dreamed of is still out there waiting while the clock keeps ticking. Time doesn't scream for attention. It doesn't demand urgency. Actually, it just moves quietly, efficaciously to your future or deeper into regret. When you treat time like money, actually, you stop to value it, stop giving it away so easily. You stop spending it on things that don't pay you back. Actually, you stop letting people cheat you without permission. You become intentional. And that's where real power begins. Actually, because every second is a decision, every moment is an investment, and every action compounds. What you do today matters more than you think. Actually, it's not just about alignment. Are your seconds serving your values or your comfort? Actually, are your minutes moving you toward your purpose or just passing time? The most dangerous lie is that you have more time, that you can start next week. Actually, that you'll focus after the holidays, that you'll slow down eventually. But life doesn't slow down, it speeds up, and the more time you waste, the harder it gets to shift direction. You don't need to overhaul your life in one move. You need to stop sleepwalking through your days. Actually, you need to wake up and realize that you are spending your life right now with every swipe, every delay, every decision you avoid. Actually, the cost is invisible, but perspective changes everything. Think about someone who got a second chance at life, a survivor. Actually, someone who almost lost it all. They don't waste time. They don't procrastinate their purpose. Actually, they don't argue with themselves after they feel like showing up, because they understand the value of now. Actually, you don't need to wait for a crisis to find that clarity. You can choose to live like your time is priceless before it runs out. Most of your time like a portfolio. Invest in activities that give you energy, purpose, and return. Cut out the noise that drains you. Actually, schedule your focus like it's a meeting with your future. Protect your mornings. Prioritize deep work. Set digital boundaries. Create evening rituals that calm your mind. Your calendar is not just a schedule, it's your life in blocks. Actually, and what you put into those blocks becomes your reality. Write a time manifesto, a personal declaration of how you will use your seconds. Actually, what you will no longer tolerate, what you will fight to protect, what you will create. Post it where you can see it. Actually, let it remind you every day you're not just passing time, you're shaping a legacy. Actually, the loop you've been trapped in didn't steal your power, it distracted you from it. The moment you take your time seriously, actually the loop begins to break, and in its place something new starts to grow. Direction, discipline, clarity, peace. You don't need more hours. Actually, you need to honor the ones you already have, because the real flex isn't being busy, it's being intentional. Actually, the most powerful people in the world don't move faster, they move with purpose, and now so can you. One. Actually, you're not lazy, you're looping. The first and most important lesson is that your struggles aren't a reflection of your character, they're a reflection of your patterns. Actually, most people think they're hopeless as a lack of motivation, but that's not the root cause. You're not broken, you're running on a loop. Actually, your brain is a machine that can conserve energy by repeating behaviors that feel familiar, even if they're destructive. Actually, whether it's the urge to overthink or to avoid discomfort, all of it lives in a repeated cycle. Trigger a routine was reward. Once you understand this, you stop blaming yourself and start taking control. You stop saying, I'll change someday, and start investigating what triggers your bad habits. The loop hides in small. Actually, delete your phone without thinking, the way you delay important tasks by distracting yourself with busy work. Actually, the way one setback makes you quit instead of a set. Actually, your freedom begins the moment you realize that you can't willpower your way out of these loops. You have to interrupt them, replace them. Actually, and you can, because what was trained into you can be trained out. This shift in thinking isn't just about building better habits. Actually, it's about reclaiming your agency. You realize that your time, your focus, your energy, and your life are things you can design. Actually, that's a massive change. Once you stop being a passive participant in your habits and start actively engineering new ones, everything transforms. Actually, it's not about changing overnight, it's about breaking one loop at a time until momentum takes over. 2. Action first. Actually, emotion follows. One else says you need to feel ready before you act. Actually, this single belief holds than any bad habit ever could. Waiting for motivation, inspiration, or confidence creates a never-ending delay. But the truth is, action creates emotion, not the other way around. The second you start moving, actually, Your brain shifts, even a small shoes opening a document, actually, writing one sentence, hesitation to momentum. The people you admire, the ones who seem productive, focused, and unstoppable, actually aren't fueled by constant motivation. They're fueled by systems, structure, and a bias toward action. Actually, they don't trust their feelings to decide when to move. They trust movement to decide how they feel. This mindset alone can change your life, actually, because it teaches you to act your way into belief, to behave your way into change. And once you've moved, actually even just a little, your brain begins to cooperate. This doesn't mean you hustle nonstop or ignore rest. Actually, it means you stop waiting for the perfect conditions. You stop negotiating with your excuses. And when you don't feel like it, you act anyway. Actually, because it's easy. But because the future you're building is worth more than the comfort of a quiet day. Actually, action is the guishu in the life you have and the life you want. 3. Actually, you are spending your life. One choice here. Your lesson is perspective. Every second you have is currency. Every minute is a choice. Actually, you are not just lucid. You're spending your life. One distracted hour doesn't seem like much, but over weeks and months, actually, less and lost dreams. What you do with your time today shapes what you become tomorrow. Actually, the secret isn't to do more, it's to do what matters with intention, to build boundaries, to protect your focus. Actually, to stop letting the world steal your attention and energy. You don't need more hours in a day. You need to stop leaking the ones you already have. Actually, your life is not a someday event, it's happening now, and every action you take is either reinforcing the loop or breaking it. Actually, reclaiming your time is reclaiming your power. Once you start protecting your time like your life depends on it, everything changes. Because it does. Actually, reading about change is one thing. Living is another. The power of break the loop isn't just in the ideas, it's in the application. Actually, the only way to escape old habits and reclaim is by consistently practicing these principles in your actual day-to-day life. Actually, you don't need a dramatic life overhaul. You need clear, simple actions that compound over time. Here's how to make these lessons real. Actually, starting now. Start with a time audit. For 1 or 2 days, write down everything you do in 30-minute blocks. Don't guess. Don't filter. Actually, just observe. This will open your eyes to where your time is really going. Actually, you'll spot loops you didn't know existed, like how you always reach for your phone after lunch. Actually, or how a quick YouTube break turns into 90 minutes. You're not doing this to judge yourself. You're doing it to face the truth. Actually, awareness is the first step toward change. Once you've tracked your time, pick one loop to break. Don't try to change everything at once. Actually, choose a habit that's draining your energy or stealing your focus. Identify the triggers, what starts it, the routine eyes the behavior. Actually, and the reward, what your brain gets from it. Then design a replacement loop. For example, actually, if your loop is boredom, scrolling, simulation, actually, change the routine to something like boredom, short walk, or journal entry, dopamine from movement or reflection. Actually, the reward must still satisfy your wish, but in a way that serves your long-term goals. Build fortress hours into your day. Actually, choose one block of time. Start with just this lintis that you protect with everything you've got. Turn off notifications, close your email. Actually, silence your phone and focus on one task that actually matters. This could be deep work, exercise, reading, or a personal project. Actually, put it on your calendar like an appointment. Treat it like a meeting with your future self. Actually, the key is not how long it is. The key is that it's uninterrupted. Actually, that single hour of intentional focus and more momentum than an entire day of scattered effort. Create systems to support your goals. Systems are the difference between wishing and winning. If your goal is to read more, actually, read more, so just say, read one chapter every night before bed. Actually, put the book on your pillow, so it's the last thing you see before sleep. If you want to eat better, actually, don't rely on willpower every time you're hungry. Use Sunday to prep meals so the right decision is the easy one. Systems take effort to build. But once in place, lay the heavy lifting for you. Apply the 2-day rule to every habit you're building. That means you can miss 1 day. But never 2 in a row. If you skip a workout today, you absolutely show up tomorrow. This rule helps prevent downward spirals and keeps you consistent without being obsessed with perfection. It also helps train your bounce back muscle. Life will knock you off track, but with this rule you always have a built-in reset button. Use your environment as an ally, not an enemy. Small environmental defense. If you want to stop snacking at night, don't keep junk food in your house. If you want to focus in the morning, put your phone in another room. Lay out your gym clothes the night before. Keep your workspace clean. These adjustments don't just support better habits, they remove friction and make discipline easier. Finally, write your time manifesto. Define how you want to spend your time. What matters most to you? What are you no longer willing to tolerate? Post it where you can see it every day. When life gets loud, this becomes your anchor. You're not just breaking bad habits. You're building a new identity. Every small action you take is casting a vote for the kind of person you want to become. Over time, those votes compound into that feels focused, free and fully yours. You are not your bad habits. You are not your past loops. Your distractions or your lost time. You are something deeper, something powerful waiting to be unleashed beneath all the noise. This book wasn't just about activity. It wasn't about hustle or perfection. It was about freedom. The freedom to stop living life on autopilot. The freedom to stop chasing time and start owning it. The freedom to break the loop and finally live on your terms. Throughout these chapters, you learned that your isn't slipping away by accident. It's being stolen by systems you didn't even realize were running. But the moment you became aware of them, you gained power. The moment you identified your loops, your triggers, your hidden time drains, you took that control. That control doesn't come from motivation. It comes from awareness, from systems, from consistent, deliberate action. You learned that you don't need to you feel ready. You start before you're ready. You take action first and motivation follows. You stop asking for permission from your feelings. You move and then your brain catches up. You rewrite your story, not with willpower alone. But by designing environments that pay, setting up systems that carry you forward. And replacing broken loops that serve your future. You discovered that time is your greatest asset. You are a time bet only for a limited season. Every second is a decision. Every moment is a chance to build, to recover, to realign. You don't need more time. You need more intention. You don't need to hustle harder. You need to live smarter. The loop is breakable. The patterns can change. You don't have to keep living in cycles of regret and false starts. You've been given tools. Here with your time, your focus, and your identity. Now it's up to you to use them. Not tomorrow. Not when life slows down. Now, because your life is not something you find, it's something you create, one decision, one moment, one loop at a time. Break the loop, and then to look back.